Good evening, Bills Mafia. What's going on? How are we tonight? I am ecstatic to be here tonight on the debut of Buffalo Late Night on the Cover One Sports Network. Again, welcome. I'm your host, Thomas DeLoss. First thing I want to do tonight is to give you guys a little bit of a backstory because, well, for most of you who know who I am that have watched Buffalo Late Night before, you know that, well, I have been gone for the last couple of months. So there's a reason I went on a hiatus. Back at the middle of December, when I was working, I had received a call that my best friend, my grandfather, had unfortunately been taken to the hospital. And over the next 28 days, I would see his health dramatically change, his life dramatically change, to the point where he would meet his maker on January 11th, just 4 days after my birthday. Now, that's obviously been a big adjustment and still something that I'm still trying to work through. But stepping away from doing all this has been a much needed break and a way for me to navigate this massive loss. Now, I don't want to start this show, the debut, with, you know, sad and sorrows and whatnot. I do want to bring some good news. And the good news that comes into play with all this was, as I said, there was 6 days before the biggest day of my life. My, grandfather passed away. Well, here's the crazy thing. That 6 days was my son, his due date. Well, I'm notoriously and neurotically on time to the point where, well, my son wasn't. He was born January 25th. And though it came with nerve-wracking and medical stuff that is now behind him, it was indeed the greatest day of my life. So this, in fact, is my little guy. This is my son, Griffin. Which is why I have been on a hiatus for a little bit. Incredibly excited to introduce you guys to him, but I'll hand him back off to my wife to go to bed. But guys, I truly appreciate for everybody who was, really in my corner, in my messages, in my DMs, and helping me through all this. I truly and genuinely appreciate it. It was a very tumultuous time in my life, from my grandfather to passing away to my son being born, all within a few days of each other. Really kind of tested your fortitude. So incredibly blessed and also incredibly thankful to all the guys here at Cover One. I'm honored to be joining a fantastic team and being able to bring my show to an already stacked lineup full of phenomenal content creators and brilliant gentlemen. So here we are on the first Thursday of the show, 2 weeks from NFL Draft Day. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in this evening. Or if you're listening on Spotify, happy Friday to you. Now, you can find our free show or our show free on all social media and streaming platforms, including Spotify and YouTube. And if you're watching on Twitter right now, why are you watching? Who watches on Twitter? Come on, let's get out of there. Come on over. You can join the conversation, chat with us tonight, and you can jump right over to our YouTube channel. So get on in here. Now, to the fun stuff. Tonight, we have an amazing guest. I'm excited. He's one of my favorites. We have an amazing guy on Late Night with us this evening. He truly needs no introduction, but for the sake of it, he is the co-host of the Extra Point Show, as well as the sideline reporter for the Buffalo Bills. So let's welcome in our guy here, Sal Capaccio. Sal, what's going on, my friend?
Not much. Listen, first of all, boy, you laid out a lot there. Sorry to hear about your grandfather. That's really sad, obviously, and I'm sure he lived a great life, and you guys had a great relationship, special relationship, it sounded like. And then, man, Griffin, hi, Griffin. Amazing. That's awesome. Beautiful. Love it. So good for you. Congratulations. Also a year older. I just had a birthday myself, as you know, last week. So, another trip around the sun for all of us. And now they're going to go a lot quicker now that you have your son. I'll tell you that.
I'll tell you, that's the one thing I never really like until you become a parent, right? You don't really
Right.
understand these things. The first almost 3 months is the most astounding thing. Watching him grow from
Mhm.
now he was 6 pounds, 15 ounces. He's a little small. Now he's 12 pounds. It's the craziest thing ever. So
First
it's
child.
wonderful. It is our first child.
Okay, yeah, listen, you know me, I talk about my son Max quite often, too often, some people say, but that's okay. I like sharing my life with people on the radio and things like that. But he's 9. I can't believe he's going to be 10 this year. It's pretty crazy. He's going into 5th grade, and I don't know where the time flies. I still have people tell me they were literally listening to the show when I was doing a Bills post game show when I was not the sideline reporter at the time, a couple years before that, and I was doing a show, and I said, "Hey, if you hear dead air, it's because I had to take my wife to the hospital because she's literally in the studio with me right now, and our due date is like tomorrow." So, and now here we are. He's 10 years old, so it's pretty crazy.
It's funny you say that. I don't think people truly know, like when Howard had his last day,
Mhm.
how like with a lot of you guys, me as a mailman, I listen to you guys all the time. Like literally, I from the very first show, I listened to the Extra Point show. I listened to One Bills Live, and I mean everything is always because my headphones are always in.
Mhm.
So when you literally had your son, or when everything that happened to Jeremy, and then
Yeah.
him, his wife having kids again, I've listened to it all. I've been a part of it all. So it's almost like an extension of your family.
So we call you a P1. You're a P1 in the listening world. This kind of radio jargon that metrics use and ratings and for books and advertisers and things like that. So you're a P1 listener. We appreciate that. And I always say it. I mean, listen, larger discussion for another day. Didn't bring me on to talk about this, but it's definitely a discussion I love having and talking about these kinds of things. We're going to talk draft, but I always tell people like I get every day. I just had the other day a guy tell me like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you always talk about your family, talk about your son," which I don't always do, but I do bring them into conversation a lot. And there are definitely people who say, "Oh my God, I don't tune in to hear about that because I want to hear sports." But then there's just as many people, if not a lot more, who say, "I love hearing about that stuff because it reminds me of me and we can relate to each other." And I always say, listening to people the way you do, it's like a family together. You're having a conversation with someone every day. Like you and I met each other in person not too long ago, training camp, right? For the first time ever.
For sure.
And yet we've known each other really for 10 years when you think about it, right? So I think that's the kind of relationship I like to have and build with my audience and my listeners, where if you see me out, you feel like I've known this guy for 10 years. I've known this guy for 15 years, even though we've never actually met, because that's the kind of personal relationship I think radio and the medium that I do can bring to people and to a community.
It's funny you say that, as I enjoyed you were talking with Sneaky Joe about your 50th birthday party and how you just kind of took a step back and got to enjoy seeing everybody interacting that hadn't seen each other. And it's very apropos that is what you see is this kind of web that we weave in life, is that you kind of by proxy have created this network of relationships just because of what you do. So it's
Yeah,
amazing.
well, thank you. And my wife did an amazing job. My 50th birthday party a couple of years ago. In case your listeners haven't heard, a couple of years ago, she said, "What do you want to do for your 50th? We should do something special." And she said, "You want to go to Vegas? You want to go like on a golf retreat?" And I said, I'm a people person. I love interacting with people. I love seeing with people. And we just came out of COVID. And I said, we never see anybody anymore. And when we do see people, Tom, we see them, unfortunately, bad situations, funerals. And you go up to somebody, what do you always say? Boy, we should get together more often. It shouldn't have to be under these kind of circumstances. That's what you say to people, right? You shake your hand and you hang out. And I said, how about we just have a big party and get people together for a good reason? 154 people showed up to my birthday party at Riverworks. It was awesome. And it would have been a lot more if the Sabres weren't playing that night and it was Devin Levi's first game. But it was the only night we could get where we were. My wife did an amazing job on it. And I was very proud of that. And that was the big thing for me. And I said that night when I had everybody there, I went up and I said, look, and DJ Milk was DJing. It was great. And I said, for me, it's a 50th birthday party for me, but this is about me wanting to see everybody get together. There were literally people there, Tom, that I knew for 45 years, friends that were at my first or second grade birthday party because we were in the same class together at Cleveland Hill. And there were people I'd literally known for 5 days because I met a woman out at Arizona who worked for the American Heart Association, who's a Bills fan who lives in Buffalo, and her husband came to the party. So that's the kind of thing I wanted to build, and it was great that night.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I'm glad you had such a good time. Obviously, you got tan. I'm still working on that. That's
Went
the
to
nice thing as a
Cancun.
mailman.
We actually did do something even beyond the party.
It's beautiful. Now let's get into why I brought you on tonight. Obviously, the real big talk, and I think we're all kind of beating a dead horse at this point, but the big talk is the NFL draft. And for a team like the Buffalo Bills right now, who again are on the precipice of very big things, it's a team that, for the most part, minus a few holes, Tremaine Edmonds, people believe a second wide receiver potentially, and then that right tackle spot. There's some very minimal holes that need to be filled. So, what I want to talk to you about tonight, in the big one, I think for most people, is that middle linebacker's position. I think the one that I think people have kind of kept talking about is Jack Campbell from Iowa. Now, I know one thing, and Brandon Beane has spoken to this, I would say in a very roundabout way. He's very good with his words, I would say. When it comes to value, he wants to make sure that the pick he has and best player available kind of are synonymous, right? That's why he does all those free agent fillers, gets those guys for the 1.7 million. Now, the big issue is a lot of people, now obviously media and, everybody in between, whether it's a pundit or, it's Mel Kiper or whatnot, what they believe Jack Campbell's position is somewhere between 45 and 55, right? How do you, Sal, look at this situation for a Bills team that has such a glaring hole at that middle linebacker position? And what do you do with Jack Campbell? What do you do with him at 27? Do you take him at 27 or do you hold off?
I think, first of all, you have to start from the premise that you just laid out. And if that's what the Bills believe, do the Bills believe they have a gaping hole at middle linebacker? The Bills spent a 3rd-round pick last year on a guy that I think that, that's a pretty hefty price in Terrell Bernard. Do they feel that he's the middle linebacker? Do they feel that Tyrell Dodson can be a quality starter in this league? He's been in the system now for a few years. So I'm not saying you're wrong or not. I don't know. I want to know, do the Bills feel they have a glaring hole at middle linebacker? They lost Tremaine Edmonds. He was a polarizing player himself, right? There were a lot of people who tell you that, the things that, hey, things that he did, he could have done better and didn't diagnose well enough. And I will tell you, like, he wasn't great at the point of attack. He also did a lot of great things, right? He was very rangy, and we all know the athleticism and things like that. So I think first you have to assess if the Bills feel that way. I don't think it's cut and dry that they have this glaring hole. I think what happened, though, was it was the one spot where they lost a, multi-year starter that had been there for quite a while, right? Not like Roger Stafford that guard came in and didn't have a great year. This is a guy who's been here for 5 years, walked out the door, signed a very big contract. So let's just say, though, they do feel that they have to upgrade there, which, by the way, that would be an admission that maybe Terrell Bernard wasn't a great pick last year as a 3rd rounder, which again gets me back to they might want to see that through. So if they do feel that way, and then you have to go to, is Jack Campbell the guy? Maybe it's Henley. Maybe there's another guy that they feel that could be someone better. Okay, let's say it's Jack Campbell. That comes down to then what the value is, like you said. So if it's 45 or so, I don't think they take him at 27. I know Brandon Beane well enough, and I know the Bills front office well enough and the way they operate. And that includes, Terrence Gray and Malik Boyd and the group that he has there with him. They're not going to reach that far down the board to take a player. They will take the best available player, as long as they're not taking a quarterback if he's the next guy on the board, right? That's not going to happen. But pretty much any other position you could argue for, because the draft is still about the future. It's about the next 4 years. It's about the next 5 years for a first rounder. So to answer your question, Tom, if they have him ranked in the 40s, I don't see him coming off the board at 27. If they have him ranked low 30s, I could see it. I don't think that's too far to reach. The question is, at what point do you dip too far into the pool and go put your hand under that water? Because they're going to stick to their board because that's what they believe to do.
Now, based on that, obviously, and what the Bills do, Brandon Beane is very much a creature of habit. I think we've come to find that out. If you look at what the Bills have done over the last 4 or 5 years under Brandon Beane, generally speaking, if they have a top 30 visit, one of those top 30 ends up being one of their picks. He's pretty much a guy that they feel very vested in.
Generally,
if you look at those
1 or 2 times, maybe in the last whatever years, right? It just doesn't. I think it's generally the case, right?
Right. I think Josh was one. Ed Oliver was one. I believe Tremaine was one. We know Kair was one. And even you could go down the line. Dawson Knox was the top 30 visit, and James Cook was as well. So based on that, and if you look at, like the historical analysis and how things kind of look, there hasn't been any linebacker visits, at least anything that we've known about for top 30 yet. They've met Senior Bowl, they've met, in combine visits and whatnot and all that. And they still do a little bit of the COVID doing FaceTime stuff, though most of them like to do it more in person at this point. Based on what you've seen and the lack of that, and alongside of what you're saying with Terrell Bernard, and potentially maybe they just truly believe, whether it's him, Dodson, or Spector, do you think that wide receiver is potentially more along the lines of where they might actually trend?
I think they're going to draft a wide receiver. I don't know if they're going to draft him in 27. Top 30 visits doesn't have to be a first. Just because they have a bunch of guys doesn't mean that guy's got to be in the first round, right? I mean, top 30 visits, as you said, James, he wasn't a first rounder. They still took him. So I think if you look at who they're bringing in, it's a good indication. There's three things I think you always have to think about with the Bills with this regime. Top 30 visits matter, as you just said. Senior Bowl matters. Doesn't have to be a Senior Bowl, but they've really drafted guys that they've seen and met with at the Senior Bowl. Like, it's kind of mattered over the years with them, right? And then the traits guys, right? The traits, Greg Rousseau's and the Spencer Browns and the Tommy Doyle's, like, they like the traits. If you can kind of piece all that together, the athletic guys, like they care about the traits and the scores, the Spark scores, the RAS, all that stuff. Like they care about that stuff. And if there's a way to kind of piece all of that together, which I haven't done personally yet, you might arrive at who you think could be the 27th pick, because those are all trends the Bills have. So yeah, I do think wide receivers in the mix. I don't know at 27, because the general consensus on this class at wide receiver is maybe Jackson Smith and Jigba is the only first rounder. And then after that, you got a lot of second and third rounders and fourth rounders. And maybe that's where you're looking. Maybe they don't take a first round wide receiver, but all of a sudden you're sitting there in day 2 and, oh yeah, they really like this guy. And we can't wait that long. So let's move up a few spots in round 2 to take him or something like that. But I do think wide receivers in play. I would be careful to think it's in play right away at number 27. It's possible, but it just doesn't seem like that's the trend with this position this year.
Right. And I think the one thing that we may have to go back to, because I know a lot of Bills fans and there's been some conjecture about Gabriel Davis. Brandon Beane loves Gabriel Davis.
He does.
He's been very vocal about, even to the point where I think I don't know if it was Chris Brown or Steve Tasker said that Brandon Beane would build Gabe Davis a house in his backyard. That's how much he loves him. I think there's something to be said for that. Alongside of the other guys, Deontay Hardy, Sherfield, he's brought in people in pieces that could, be important or impactful pieces. But you're right. I think that's one thing that we have to look at is there's a lot of deep talent this year beyond that first round. And
I would still also say that I think, and I said this right when the season ended. I was on a pod with John Scott, Matt Perino, and Elena Getzenberg, and I was asked to give one bold prediction for the offseason. This was back in early February. I said my one bold prediction is the Bills will sign Gabe Davis to an extension sometime before the 23 season begins. And I still think that is going to happen, because you have Gabe Davis, Ed Oliver, and Tyler Bash, your 3 drafted guys who are going into last year, their contracts. And I think that if the Bills have a decision to make, if they don't sign Gabe Davis and let it play out, which is fine, they're not going to re-sign him next year. I think the money gets too expensive then. And Gabe Davis could cost a lot of, look at Odell just went for $15 million minimum. The guy hasn't played in a year. He's got injury concerns. Look what these receivers are costing. The Bills can, and there might be fans out there and go, that's fine. Let Gabe Davis go somewhere else. And I understand, like, if that's what you feel. I don't think the Bills feel that way. I think they'd like to keep him long term. They love Gabe Davis, as you just pointed out, rightfully. I think that they would like to have him locked up with cost certainty even before the season starts.
Right. I don't disagree. And I think the Bills fan of old sometimes seeps up into the Bills fan of new and finds things to be disappointed about, even though Gabe Davis is a very good receiver and had a pretty darn good year. I mean, a year that in the drought era, we would be very satisfied with.
Yeah. I think because of what happened in Kansas City in the year before, in the playoff game, and the 4 touchdowns in the game he had, the bar was probably a little too high. And let's be honest, the Bills didn't really address wide receivers. So they even allowed that bar to be that high. They allowed the expectations for him to be that high because they basically said, look, that's our guy. We have a number one, Stephon Diggs. We have number two in Gabe Davis. There was no, not like the year before with Emmanuel Sanders on the team where they kind of were interchangeable a little bit. Yeah, they drafted Khalil Shakir, but it wasn't like he was going to be a threat necessarily to number two at Gabe Davis. We're kind of there right now, aren't we? Are we in the same spot? Because there's a little unknown with, Deontay Hardy and Trent Sherfield. I'll tell you from being at the owners' meetings, like the talk there is the Bills really do believe in these guys and they're going to be a part of the offense. And I keep wondering, does that shy them away from a wide receiver earlier in this draft because of the things that I heard of how glowingly they believe in what these guys can do for their offense?
And I'll be honest with you, I think people need to watch a little Deontay Hardy tape because I think there's a lot of people that work for the Saints, whether media personalities or whatnot, that said themselves that Deontay Hardy was about to break through and become a pivotal piece of their offense. Unfortunately, he had a DUI that happened, and then he had the injury, and it kind of just derailed what they had planned for him.
Yeah, and I spoke to Dennis Allen at the owners' meetings and said, what kind of player the Bills getting, and he was pretty short compared to some of the other coaches with other people I asked about. Like Sean McVay talked a lot about Taylor Rapp and Edwards, the guard the Bills signed. He was like, oh my God, and he talked about these guys. Asked Dennis Allen about Hardy. He was like, basically, yeah, he's a really good player, just has to stay healthy. Like, all right, he didn't want to give much more, but basically that was the knock. Stay healthy. Because last year he missed the year because he had the turf toe most of the year. He didn't miss the whole year, but that was a big thing for him. So we'll see. And I do think it's interesting that, they signed these guys, Sherfield and Hardy, and they also kept and restructured Nyheim Hines. So that, does anybody think Nyheim Hines isn't the return man? So that allows these guys to be on the offensive side. They're not going to be return guys. These are offensive players because they think Nyheim Hines is your return guy.
I don't think Brandon Beam wants to get into the situation that he got into at the end of last year, where he had to bring in guys because the offense was,
Right.
having issues, and Josh was not confident. Confident. That being said, got one last thing for you, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask. There's a lot of Bills fans that want the more luxury pick, i.e., a Darnell Washington. But the big one is obviously Bijan Robinson. He's a guy that is polarizing for a lot of people. He's a generational running back. I don't know what that means anymore because I think it's thrown around very willy-nilly at this point. I personally am not a Bijan guy. I think he's an unbelievable talent. I don't think he fits the Bills offense, but Sal, for everybody in the chat and for people watching, if Bijan Robinson, which I would be very surprised if he falls to 27, if he was to fall to 27, do the Bills think about the opportunity or the possibility of taking a Bijan Robinson at 27?
I think they think about it. I don't think they do it. I just, the way this organization operates suggests that they just aren't into that. They're not into a first round running back. They're not into a guy that you're going to spend that kind of an asset on, which means you're going to have to give him the ball a lot. And they have James Cook, who, listen, if James Cook had 11 more carries last year, he would have literally led all running backs in yards per carry. Now, he could have really had a horrible 11 carries, but he was right there. I mean, he was at the top of the league. He just needed 11 more carries to qualify. And then they signed Damien Harris. And Damien Harris, I think Damien Harris is not Bijan Robinson, but I think Damien Harris represents the fact that they're not going to go out and draft a Bijan Robinson because of what they have now in their backfield and that they already added some other weapons. I just don't see it happening. He's a fantastic talent. There's no doubt about it. I think he could fit in any offense. I think the Bills wanted to use him that way. Then, they could find a way. But what happens when you draft a running back in the first round is you're going to treat him like a first round running back, or you should. And if you don't, then it's not worth it. That's why it just doesn't fit to me. Either then you have to do it, which doesn't make sense because you have Josh Allen. So why aren't you just letting Josh Allen throw the ball, 7 out of 10 times, or you're going to do it and you're going to say, well, that's not, if you want to justify it. And if you don't do it and you let Josh Allen, then why'd you draft him in the first round? It just doesn't make sense to me. So I don't think the Bills will do it. Actually, if he's there at 27, there'd probably be a pretty good trade partner. Somebody would want to come up and get him. So maybe that's the option you have there.
Before I let you go, if you had to take a shot in the dark, who's your guy that, if all things aligned, is the one that the Bills would take at 27?
Shot in the dark. Well, it's funny. You say, I do want to go back. You said luxury pick for Darnell Washington. I don't think tight end's a luxury pick. I think they want another tight end. I think it's something they want and they've been after. Although I don't know if 27, this is a really good tight end class. You can wait around too. You can wait around and also get a really good tight end. Even Washington might be there. Who knows? I'm leaning lately towards Jack Campbell. I'm leaning towards one of the linebackers. I wonder if they like Henley. I think Jack Campbell checks all the boxes for the Bills. Like if I'm thinking about a guy that they could to take there, that might be it. The other one is I don't think he'll be there. But if Darnell Wright is there, the offensive tackle out of Tennessee, I think that's a guy you got to really consider. The Bills have really talked up Spencer Brown, and I don't think that's fake. But man, you're talking about a ready-made guy coming from the SEC who could probably start from day one versus a guy who you believe in but hasn't shown it yet in Spencer Brown.
Right. Yeah, I agree emphatically. I think there's a lot of moves to be made, but for people who for some reason wouldn't know who you are, I don't know why, feel free to plug your stuff so people can know where to find you.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows I'm done on WGR. I hope by now, and if you don't, well, maybe you're out of town. You don't know, but you can find that Odyssey app if you're not around it. It's every day, 10 to 12. Sneaky Joe DiBiase is my co-host in the Extra Point Show. I do a Bills segment in the morning and in the afternoon with the different host there. But, lately, one thing I will promote and want to promote is, I do the podcast now with Matt Bove. It's called It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. We've been doing it for about a year, actually. We're coming up on a year, and we're expanding it now. We're doing video stuff like you're doing here. And I have my YouTube channel, which we just did our first YouTube video cast of It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. And we had Chris Trapasso on from CBS Sports. Well, tomorrow we're actually interviewing Brian Baldinger on our YouTube, on our Always Game Day in Buffalo. And that's going to be on video. We're going to turn around that for the weekend so everybody has that going into the week. And then next week, there you go. This is the one that everybody loves every year. I could interview the most famous politicians and athletes in the world. That wouldn't matter, Tom. Mike North, the schedule maker.
Mike North,
that's the guy everybody. That's the guy everybody.
That's my favorite interview you do all year long is Mike North. I love it.
It's scheduled. Next week we're doing it. I'm not going to put it out next week. I'll let the draft happen. But we're gonna talk to him next week, and then we'll have that ready to go for everybody right after the draft, right before the schedule. So I guess that's a long way of me saying go subscribe to It's Always Game Day in Buffalo, both on the audio version, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you pod. We have everything. It's on all platforms, and of course now on the YouTube channel. And you can find me on YouTube. I think it's Coach Sal C on YouTube. Might be Sal Sports, but you'll find me there.
Sal, before you go, make sure you ask Mike North about the Aaron Rodgers and Jets situation in regards to scheduling, because I think everybody wants to know how that shakes out.
I will. And what's funny is, so we are actually going to interview him before the draft. A little peek behind the curtain here. So we'll ask him that. But by the time it airs, I don't know if it will matter. But he might. But it's still a good question, because I'm going to say, hey, listen, when people hear this, but how are you treating this right now? Right? Because they got to make the schedule. The schedule is going to be out sometime in the first, week and a half or so of May. So we'll figure that out. Last year on my podcast, Mike North broke the news nationally that they were going to have 3 Christmas Day games, right? Like that became news. And I'm sitting at home and I'm like, oh my God, I see my name on the bottom line of SportsCenter. Mike North tells Sal Capaccio on his podcast about it. I'm like, oh, this is crazy, right? Well, I don't know if we're going to expect anything like that this year, but we do have that Black Friday game we can talk about that's brand new. So maybe there's some nuggets on that we can learn as well.
Beautiful. Sal, truly appreciate you coming on the debut of Cover One's Buffalo Late Night. I appreciate you, my friend, and you have a wonderful evening. We'll see you soon.
All right. You too, Tom. Thanks a lot again, and congratulations, and say hi to Griffin and give him a big hug and kiss tonight. I know you will.
For sure, man. Take care.
Okay.
Obviously, that was Sal Capaccio, one of my favorites, a lot of people's favorites. Fantastic guy. Make sure to go and hit that YouTube channel that he has. If you go to his Twitter, you can actually Sal Sports. He tweeted out earlier about his YouTube channel. Good stuff there. Now, before I hop to our next fantastic person that I've got scheduled here tonight, I do want to talk about the Cover One Pass. Guys, make sure you are checking out Cover One's One Pass. Great opportunity to get some super insight, analytics, our Slack chat, really getting behind the scenes, the nitty gritty. It really, if you want to know more about football, how to look at things differently when you're watching the game on Sunday, which is really truly Eric Turner, the guy that is behind this with Aaron and Greg. When he started this all up, he wanted to make football more palatable. He wanted to make it something that for the average fan that you could understand what was going on, because for a lot of people, football is like reading Chinese, right? Uh, Go get that Cover One Pass. It is fantastic. The information at your fingertips is worthwhile. So highly suggest doing that. Moving forward, my guy, if you've watched Buffalo Late Night before, then you know my next guy. He is Banged Up Bills. He is Dr. Kyle Trimble. He's my regular. Kyle, what's going on, brother?
Good to talk to you again, Thomas.
For sure. It's been a hot minute. For anybody who doesn't know, Kyle, Banged Up Bills, not only has his own website, BangedUpBills.com, he does stuff for everybody from myself, Cover One, Joe Marino, pretty much anybody you can think of, right? And he's going to be back this season with Buffalo Late Night. But what we're going to be doing tonight is we're going to be talking about a couple of the main players that I think everybody's kind of interested in. And those five, Spencer Brown with his back surgery, Josh Allen's UCL, Micah Hyde in that neck injury with the fusion surgery he had, Von Miller's knee, and Tre'Davious White's knee. So Kyle, feel free to take it away and let us know what you're seeing going forward.
So we'll start off with some of the lesser ones. I'll start off with Spencer Brown. So just a quick recap: he had a discectomy back in May during OTAs. At the time, it was announced as just some type of back procedure. We didn't know the specifics of it, and then it came to be found or revealed during like the second, third week of training camp that he had a discectomy. I believe the Buffalo News first reported that, from what I found. So those timelines usually don't take too long to go through in terms of getting healthy, back to normal activities. But the problem was he had this thing in May. He originally suffered the injury sometime, we think back in mid-November, around mid-season, because he had the back injury coming off the bye, so we didn't know how he injured the back. So basically the details of that happened, and he kind of played the rest of the season. Then I bet he probably tried rehabbing it in the offseason, wasn't getting better. They said, let's get this thing trimmed out, get that taken care of, and then he had to recuperate all summer, and then he missed a bunch of reps in the beginning of the season, or because it beginning of preseason. And then he had to really work hard to get even back up to speed at the beginning for week one. And you could just tell that he was just not quite up to speed with regards to the reps, his comfort and level of play. The conditioning wasn't there right away, but then he came on later on in the season. And we heard Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott talk about how they just praised him constantly in every post season press conference and after the season, things like that. So they know that it affected him more, and it wasn't the back at that point that affected him. It was just the loss of those reps early on, and then he could never quite get up to speed. So he really started from behind the eight ball there. Concerns with that is he could re-herniate the disc. He could herniate another disc. He could have further back problems. That does come with any disc herniation, whether it's cervical or lumbar. There's about 15% failure rate if that does happen. And then that could lead to fusions. That could lead to other problems down the line. But it's one of those things that, yeah, it's possible, but doesn't mean it's going to. I mean, if you think about it, a 15% failure rate, that's 85% success rate. So I'll take the 85%. We don't know if he's having any problems with that. You hope not. But that's something to watch in case he does start showing up with sitting out of practice because of back, or he showed up on the injury report. That might be something worth digging into. But right now, knock on wood, he seems pretty good. Going into that next with Tre'Davious White, he was complicated because he tore his ACL back in Thanksgiving of 2021, and the timeline was very tight for him to come back in week one. It would have been about just over 9 months, and they were trying to hold out hope that he might have been ready for the regular season. They took all the way down the wire for him, whether he's going to stay on PUP or whether he's going to be activated to the active roster. There might have been some competitive gamesmanship, if you will, with that to see whether he was going to be making the active roster or not. But then he took most of the season to even come back around Thanksgiving, a full year from the original injury. And we found out that there was a lot of mental health and really not trusting the knee from what we kind of gathered later on. And so there's much more to it than the actual physical aspect of the ACL rehab. So it was tough to see that he just wasn't adjusting as well as he needed to, because that was his first major injury. I think prior to this, he had concussion here and there. He had some stingers. He had never really had a major injury like this. So each guy responds differently with how they come back from injury. Some guys just kind of, okay, whatever, and just get right back to it. Other guys really second guess their abilities, they second guess what they can do, and that happens often with ACLs. Is you just don't have that fluidity you once had. So we were expecting that even coming off the ACL, whether you started week 1, week 10, week 16, what have you. There wasn't going to be that all-pro Tre'Davious White that we were used to seeing. So the hope is he has a full off season to really focus on the football craft itself and the neurological responses that we see in the knee normally prior to ACL tear should start to return. He should get more of that fluidity back. So he might still be knocking off some of the rust in preseason and maybe in the first few weeks of the season, but we should start seeing more normalcy of Tre'Davious White. That's the hope, at least. But there's been a pretty good track record of guys returning from ACL and getting all-pro nods after the fact. So it's just a matter of time for him to get back up to speed. But having that secondary with with Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, everybody else back there, that familiarity should help him get back up to a higher level of play that we were used to seeing. Let's see here. Going into Von Miller off the ACL, once again, a similar timeline with for what we saw with Tre'Davious White there. His case is interesting because, once again, we see a similar timeline. His situation was different because they said that he had a lateral meniscus tear. Then they went in there. They found that there was the ACL tear after the fact there. You look back, you wonder if maybe he did partially tear the ACL, and maybe they said, hey, let's see if we can try to get by and play the rest of the season. And then they said it was too damaged once they got in there. That's the speculation, though. I don't know if that's really the case. But he seems to be on track with what we're seeing from an ACL rehab. He's hitting all those benchmarks we're seeing. He had a checkup at the combine because he was out there helping Brandon Bean out with scouting and whatnot. And then his doctor who did the surgery was there. He's been out golfing. He's been out doing everything that you want him to see doing at that time. And he was expecting to go out and golf, like he had said, several weeks after the surgery. And he's doing okay from what I've seen. His timeline is very similar to what we saw with Tre'Davious White with regards to will he be ready week 1. The mistake I made with Tre'Davious White was several things. First, I bought into the hype a little bit of, hey, he's working really hard. He's going to come back better than ever. Okay. Every guy says that. I know the Bills training staff is good. We've seen them time and time again. I mean, this past year with injuries was really tough, but I know that they're good. But, with an ACL injury like that, sometimes there's certain limitations. Even I don't care how good you are, sometimes in the body, you can't speed up biology in that aspect. So, and then, we do need to know about the mental health aspect of it with the trust of the knee. The one benefit that Von Miller does have is he's a veteran. He's actually been through this before. He tore his ACL about 10 years ago on the same knee, and he's able to come back in like 8.5 months from what he did the first time. But once again, he's 10 years older. His body's seen a few extra injuries along the way, and I don't know that's realistic or smart to rush him back for week 1. We've seen guys try to get back even after a full year, and they still just struggle with Tre'Davious White. We saw that with Harrison Phillips coming off his injury, and he had a nearly full year to recover. Trent Murphy, with his ACL, coming off the edge, defensive end, we have yet to see how Tommy Doyle is going to react with his ACL. So, do I think Von Miller is going to want to push to play week 1 because that's Von Miller? Yeah. Do I think it's the best course of action? Probably not, just because, hey, you sign him and be ready for the postseason. And if he can even be better, then, hey, let's do that then. I will say one final point. His doctor has been known to let guys be aggressive and coming back sooner. The one name's escaping me, but the other one, Michael Gallup, he had done surgery on. He came back pretty quickly after his ACL, but once again, he's able to dictate the action, be an offensive player versus a defensive player, such as Von
Chris
Miller.
Godwin?
I don't know if Chris Godwin had his surgery done. I know he was another one that came back quickly, but I can't remember if that particular doctor did that surgery or not. But let me actually pull it up here. I did have the article ready to go. So one of them was Michael Gallup for the Cowboys, and then Who else was there? Jabril Cox was another one. He came back pretty quickly, but he's backup linebacker. And, these guys are all 10 years younger than Von Miller too. So, the doctor does have a track record of letting guys come back and play if they're ready. But once again, 10 years difference, try to find me doing something that I was doing 10 years ago. Good luck with that. So we'll see what happens if he comes back great. But we've also seen on the other side of that, Chase Young, he's still trying to work back from his ACL, and he had some significant damage in his knee. I don't know. I take, if you're putting a bet on it, week one, if the under if you take the under that he's going to return week one, or take the over, I take the over just because, he's 10 years older, and I don't know. It's really cutting it close there. So if he proves me wrong, that's fine. Whatever. It's all speculation at this point, with especially being this many months out. So everybody's watching that one. I mean, I'm watching that one. I'm just responding or seeing how he's responding to the rehab, but you can't speed up biology, and he's coming back from a pretty serious injury regardless.
Right.
So you have any thoughts at all before I go into the next few there?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is Bills fans, obviously, or just people in general, want instant gratification. So we want as many of our guys back as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, for a guy like Von, and people know when you get older, it is not as easy to return from injuries. I'm very unfortunate. I have terrible knees and have torn my ACL in both of them. It is a long, long process, especially to perform at such a high level like Von and Trey want to do. So I think we need to, recalibrate and just, personally, I think Von, if he doesn't come back till the back half of the season, fine, to be honest, because we really need him for the playoff push more than anything else.
100% agree. And, I'm hoping that even if they do keep battle a bit longer, let him get back up to being what he is used to being as Von Miller, rather than some, body out there. Because, I mean, we see guys come back trying to push it, and then they're never quite right, that first season back there. So let him hang out that first half of the season, be fresh. I mean, imagine, you're getting a Hall of Fame defensive end coming in midway through the season, and he's fully healthy, ready to go. I mean, how much of a jump start will that be to this team if they're having a little hot, a cold streak, or if they're struggling a little bit? But there's roster management stuff with that, but I don't see the benefit of having him week one at this point in his age. Maybe he's Greg Rousseau when he was really kicking butt in rehab. Okay, maybe, but I don't know. I just don't see the benefit of playing him that quickly, especially if he's ready.
Sure.
So going into the other ones, we'll say Josh Allen for last year. The other one's Micah Hyde, like you said, his neck injury. He was real frustrating in that, his hit when he had it happen against the Titans game, he kind of got his head knocked back, but he was straight up with it. So it wasn't like he had his head snapped back, but just how he hit, and he kind of just got shoved back. It didn't seem like anything at all. And then you heard after the game, he went to the hospital for further evaluation. A few days later, he's going for surgery, herniated disc. He ended up having a fusion in his neck and whatnot. So they had said he'd been dealing with the neck injuries for some time now, and he likely had some type of herniation in one of the discs prior, and was, conservatively managed prior to that. And then that hit finally just kind of broke the camel's back, if you will. So there was that slight chance he could return at the end of the season, in which we saw him start to get, activated to, practicing and whatnot. And had they won, he would have been able to play in the AFC Championship game, which would have been incredible. But it was an aggressive timeline from the get-go. I'm glad that they had the ability to push it. And the big thing with the fusions is maintaining stability and have the function and get rid of pain in there, especially in the neck. That's not something you want to mess around with there. We don't know what level he'd had, but chances are it was one of the lower levels, but still those levels can impact the phrenic nerve coming off, which can affect your diaphragm in terms of breathing. And if you hurt that, you got some big problems not being able to breathe. So they obviously fixed that with the fusion, but the big concern was we don't want to rush him back too quickly and have some type of instability. Research had shown some guys can come back quickly, but it was like 1-2 cases. So for Micah Hyde to come back and do that, that was like at the really extreme end of being able to come back and be able to play. So we don't know what could have been had they made the AFC Championship game. It would have been really cool to see him come back and play, but I think for his long-term health, it's probably best that he, didn't get to play this again this year so he can get fully right. And it's just a matter of just getting that full function back up and getting healthy. And then we find that after the cervical fusions, the guys can play for about another 3 years, which I'd say would be in line with Micah Hyde. He's on the back end of his career. There's no drop off in performance. It's just sometimes guys start having some other issues, whether there's another herniation somewhere or they kind of get beat up. But I have no concern for Micah Hyde heading into the season from a injury standpoint. It was unfortunate what happened to him. I don't think we should see any drop off in play. I think with him returning with Jordan Poyer in the backfield would really help out a lot. And it's a nice boost. He's going to come back healthy instead of worrying about whether his body's going to be a hold up for another season or two.
Right.
So, and then finally, Josh Allen, that one's been scrutinized to death. I still have no idea how he was able to play through that. I mean, just it's amazing when he went on. I think Pat McAfee, he'd said that doctors were saying he should have been out 2 to 4 weeks. He had the PRP injection. He said he was feeling pretty good, but he still wasn't 100% those next few weeks there. He was playing with the brace on. The touch of the throw was off there. He wasn't Josh Allen for those first 3 weeks, and then he started kind of getting back in the swing of things. And but he even said that it still wasn't great through the rest of the season. He was still dealing with some pain and whatnot there. Long term, there might be some arthritic changes in there, but arthritis is something that's kind of like, okay, it's going to happen to pretty much every football, player at some point. It just might be a little more prevalent in the elbow just because this is now a second UCL injury, the sprain to both those areas. And he throws football pretty fast, which puts a lot of stress on that joint there. He's getting the rehab. He's doing everything he needs to. They said that he hasn't had surgery, which is great because, we saw what happened with Brock Purdy of the 49ers. He destroyed his UCL and he had to get surgery, and he's not looking to be ready for week 1 based off of the timeline they have right now because of delayed surgery. But it comes down to if they can give him protection around in the pocket there from the offensive line. They've been stressing that all season. They keep saying that Josh shouldn't be running and trying to truck people, but that's kind of what makes him Josh Allen. They also find that when you're running in the pocket or running versus being in the pocket, more severe injuries are coming in the pocket versus running. Now, I'm not saying you can't get injured severely running outside the pocket, but you guys can tend to bounce off each other versus stationary object. You tend to get more, stress through whatever body part's being injured. So we saw both times, these UCL injuries have been in the pocket, just how he got hit there. So I'm not too concerned about his elbow heading into the season. You worry about his health overall just because of the violent nature of how he plays, but he's been playing that way the entire time. So it's like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But I'd be overall worried about his more health rather than his elbow, if that makes sense there. I'd be more worried about just his total, how he's going to be available. But I don't think he's missed a game since that first UCL injury. So, a lot of guys across the board, how they're looking for next year. There's obviously a lot of other guys coming off injuries that they're kind of so-so, but kind of just take it day by day and see what happens as they.
I think I lost you there. Oh, there you are. Okay. You froze a little bit. Yeah. I think these couple injuries are going to be noteworthy for sure. But the nice thing is they all look like the things that are trending in the right direction. And we have all those guys back, which I think is important. But for anybody who isn't familiar, as I said again, Dr. Kyle Trimble, Banged Up Bills. You can find him at BangedUpBills.com. And going forward, probably starting after OTAs, more towards like training camp, you'll see him coming here every week. Generally, it's the first, like we've said before. If he's on here for a little bit, that means we're doing good. If he's on for a longer period of time, that means we're in a bit of trouble because he's talking a lot about the injuries at hand. So he will be here going forward. And if you ever have any questions, he's unbelievably knowledgeable. You can find him on Twitter at BangedUpBills. He is quite responsive, which is nice. So you can find him there. But Kyle, as always, truly appreciate you taking the time tonight, and hope everything's going well with the family, and we'll be talking soon.
Yeah, well, I'm staying pretty busy. I just want to say welcome to Cover One. I've been working with these guys since intermittently doing different stuff for them since about 2019. So it's awesome to see the community continue to grow. Eric, Greg, and Aaron have been fantastic to me and everybody else in the community. So you picked a good one, and this is great that you're part of the family.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you, and we'll be talking soon.
All right, take care. Go Bills.
See you, brother. That was Banged Up Bills. Fantastic stuff, guys. We still have more to go. We are not done yet, and we'll be going for a little bit while longer. Now, as a father, as many parents do, I used to say as a soon-to-be father, now says as a father, because it's crazy. I'm a dad. As many parents do, want their best for their children, and that starts with their dentist. Dr. Zach Mills and his practice, A Dentist for Kids, here in Rochester, is who my wife and I will be sending our son Griffin to when he has some teethers. A Dentist for Kids offers individual dental treatment for kids of all ages. By providing a fun, relaxed, and encouraging environment, Dr. Zach's goal is to help your child build confidence in their smile and with their overall dental health. A Dentist for Kids is currently accepting new patients, and they participate with most major insurances. Dentist for Kids is the best, truly. That's my guy. That's my cousin, Zach Mills. He is a dentist in Rochester. If you mention Buffalo Late Night, you get $25 off your choice of a whitening kit or an electric toothbrush. Call today to set an appointment with him, 585-538-7230. Honestly, truly, if you have kids and you're in the Rochester area, go ahead, get Dr. Zach as your kid's dentist. He is literally the best. New parents always let you know they're new parents. It is true. You can tell the bag's under my eyes. I'm pretty tired. That being said, I said that a lot, by the way. You'll see I say that being said. We're going to move into my favorite segment on Buffalo Late Night. It is called our Damn segment. So, Ian, go ahead and launch that baby. Damn! In tonight's weekly Damn segment, Commanders fans, one and all, rejoice. The bad man is going away, or at least he's rumored to. Recent reports are suggesting that the owner of the Washington Commanders, Dan Snyder, is actively in the process of selling the team and finally getting the swift kick in the ass out the door of the Commanders franchise that fans and players alike have been waiting for quite some time now. Dan Snyder's tenure as team owner can be best described as an unabated dumpster fire, and in his time as owner, he comes under fire and time again for poor decision-making and just really not being a not-so-great guy. The multi-billionaire has been targeted by the fans for his seeming lack of care to whether the team succeeded or not, by other owners for alleging to have dirt on them, and by multiple federal agencies for poor workplace culture, sexual harassment, environmental violations, and underreporting ticket sales. So hats off to Josh Harris for purchasing a wayward team in need of new leadership, and to Dan Snyder, don't let the door hit you on the way out. So congratulations to Dan Snyder for being the first, but almost not certainly the last, two-time recipient of the Damn Award. There we are, guys. That's the first Damn Award for Buffalo Late Night on Cover One. So here we are. Now let's move on to the meat and potatoes tonight. We're gonna do this, and even if we go a little late, normally the show goes about an hour, but we'll see how things go. 2 weeks from tonight is my personal favorite. It is the NFL draft. I know a lot of people have been clamoring. We've been talking about this. Like I told Sal Capaccio earlier, beating a dead horse. But what we're going to do tonight as a collective, and the decision is truly on you guys in the chat. So if you're in the chat, I want to hear from you. I want to see what you guys have to say. I want you guys to type your responses in there. Use those little fingers. And if you're watching on Twitter, hop on over and join the chat on YouTube so we can actually communicate. We're going to be doing a live mock right now, a 7-round mock on PFF. I'm going to go ahead and pop that up on the screen so you guys can see. We're going to do a live mock together, and you guys are brain and bean. You guys are going to make the decisions. I'm just going to click the buttons. We're, as a collective, going to make the best possible draft for the best possible 53 players that we can come up with. So we're going to go ahead and start that off. I'm going to go ahead and get this all oriented. I'll put everything in the middle. So it's a little more normal. By the way, I appreciate everybody who's here tonight. Appreciate you guys checking out Buffalo Late Night on the Cover One Sports Network. Before I get this going, I do want to make an announcement for next week's show. Very excited to announce that next week we'll be having Bruce Nolan, everybody's favorite mystery man who I don't know who he is. I love him to death. Bruce is one of my favorites. We're having Bruce Nolan and Z-Bot from the Buffalo Fanatics. Those two are going to be on next week. Going to be a blast. It's going to be a good time. Those two are a boatload of fun, and I have a lot of fun with them. So those two are going to be on next week, and we're going to see what shenanigans we can get into. But let's go ahead. Let's kick this draft off. I'm going to need your help. I'm going to need you guys to help me decide what the best decisions are here. We're going to do every 3 or 4 so we can kind of see what's going on, and then we're going to go from there. So let's go ahead and start this draft. So we are 5 in. So far, we have seen Bryce Young go to Carolina, Anthony Richardson to the Texans, Will Anderson, CJ Stroud, Lucas Van Ness. Let's continue. We got Paris Johnson, Tyree Wilson, Jalen Carter, Kalijah Cansey, Devin Witherspoon, Christian Gonzalez, Joey Porter, and Darnell Wright. Man, that's a tough one right there. Darnell Wright going 13th to the Jets. I can see why they would do that. They need a huge bunch of they need a lot of help on that offensive line. Let's keep going. Now, here's the thing. If there was the report of the Bills wanting to trade up, who knows if that's true or not. But I will say this, the sweet spot, I think, is somewhere around 17 and after. That's where it's not terribly expensive to move up. So let's see where we're going. Let's move up a couple more. Let's get to that 16, 17 spot. Okay, we are at 19 right now. Ladies and gentlemen, weirdly enough, Quentin Johnson and Zay Flowers have gone before JSN. I don't know why. It's kind of crazy, but we are at 19. I need to know what you guys think. Do we potentially try to make a trade up and go ahead and get JSN, or do we hold firm and see what else falls to us over the next somehow, 9 picks? You tell me what you guys want to do, and that's what we'll go ahead. If you guys think we should go ahead and try to trade up to 19, we can try to package some picks. Go ahead and do that, but you tell me what you guys want to do. No trade ups with only 6 picks. Okay. No, don't trade up. Okay. Looking like it's a theme that you guys do not want to trade up. Is that the truth? I'm gonna need some more responses here. What do you guys think? JSN's a worth top 10 pick. Go for it. Let the board fall. Trade Davis for Addison. What is the cost to get to 19? Okay, so let me go ahead. The Rich Hill draft chart is, generally speaking, that's the one everybody kind of goes with, right? The Rich Hill model. To get from 27, where the Bills are, to 19, you're talking about 62 points. Okay, 62 points. That would be the Bills' 3rd round pick is 44 points. Or, I mean, the 3rd round pick is 44. Potentially, you could trade their 3rd round pick and maybe a late pick to get up into that higher 1st round. Let it roll a little more. Keep it rolling. Okay. Let's go a little bit first, see if we can go a little bit farther. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're at 23, Minnesota. Right? Minnesota does not need another wide receiver, I don't think. I'd be very surprised. If you go to 23, you're talking the value from 27 to 23 is only 27 points. That's interesting, because now you're talking maybe you could do a 4th round pick to move up. Do we want to move up 4 spots to get JSN, cost a 4th round pick? Or do we be daring and try to see if he's going to get past the Giants? Because I think that's the question mark right now, is does he get past the Giants? I don't know, man. I don't know if he's going to get past the Giants. You guys tell me, do we continue on? Do we keep pressing our luck and try to get it JSN? Because right now, let's take a look at who's available. Let's see. Hold on one sec. Is it going to let me take a look? I don't want to switch out because I don't want to mess this up. I don't know how. Let's see. No, that's their players. Well, let's say this. Trade, get JSN. I would offer the fourth. Yes, get JSN. Let the board fall. Yes. Let's see. Let's try and see what we can do here. Let's go ahead. 23, 27. Let's try trading our fifth. Let's see if they're willing. 87% chance. 87% chance that it says that they would take pick 137, which is the second pick in the fifth round. Let's give it a whirl. Let's go ahead and offer this trade. They did accept that trade. So right now, we now have the 23rd pick. We went up 4 spots from 27 to 23. Okay. And what we have now is we have Jackson Smith and Jigba, Dalton Kincaid, Brian Branch, Brian Brissy, Anton Harrison, Bijan Robinson. I think we kind of know where we're going here. Is the consensus at this point to take JSN? You guys tell me. Is that what we're doing? Go ahead. Thumbs up. Everybody in on this? Are we going for JSN? I think JSN's the move, right? Yep. Yeah, I doubt the number 1 will fall to 23, but yeah, let's go ahead. We're going to go ahead and draft JSN with the 23rd pick in the NFL draft. And then we're on the move again. Now, as you guys saw, right after JSN, Osiris Torrence, Jordan Addison, Bijan Robinson went to the Dallas Cowboys, which I don't think is crazy to think. And then the Vikings are back on at 27, taking Felix Anunke Uzoma. Okay, we are into the third round, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to let this ride. Do we let this ride all the way to 59? You guys tell me. Do we keep going all the way? All the way to 59? I think that's probably the move at this point, right? Run it all the way to 59. We already gave up 1 pick. We only have 5 left. Maybe we try to see if we could potentially trade back a little bit. Let's go ahead. Let's keep rolling. You want to? Who do we trade? You want to trade a player? Set at 59. Where's Jack? Jack Campbell has not been taken yet. He is still on the board. Huh. Well, let's see. We are now 18 picks away. Likelihood that Jack Campbell is going to end up being gone. Sit at 59, let it ride to 59, trade up again, field offers if they come in. We're not trading. The only thing I think we'd trade is Ed Oliver. And I think Ed Oliver's value right now is very high. I believe, if I remember doing this before, if you were to go ahead and let's say if we traded Ed Oliver in here, right? And let's say what to 41. Oh, will not be accepted. But if you were to go, let's see. Let's see. Yeah, they are not going to want to take Ed Oliver from us straight up for a pick. So that's a non-starter. Let's go ahead and keep riding all the way down. Get up around the 40s for Campbell. Now you want to stay at 59, play Dodson. You guys tell me what you guys want to do. Do we continue down? Do not trade Oliver? Right, then you have to draft his replacement. I don't think that's crazy. I think we could potentially get Keanu Benton. Depending, and now here's the thing. If we look at what's going on right here, we've already seen we had Diane Henley. I'd be very surprised if Diane Henley's the first linebacker off the board. I suppose it's possible. Diane Henley's a bit of a smaller guy in terms of size. Oh no, Drew Sanders also went. So right now, Diane Henley, Drew Sanders are both off the board. So Jack Campbell and Trenton Simpson are the two big names there. I'm going to start the mock over again. Well, here's the thing. Here's the fun part, guys. Next Thursday, like I said, I'm going to have Z-Bot and Bruce Nolan. The three of us are going to be Brandon Bean and Collective. Brandon Bean, Malik Boyd. And we're going to do this draft in its entirety. And we're going to really break this all down. So if you enjoy this tonight, come back next Thursday. We're going to do this again. Let's go ahead. Let's ride it out a few more picks, see where we're at. Cody Mock, John Michael Schmitz, Cam Smith, Tui Tulupo, Darnell Washington. Okay, we just had at pick 48, Trenton Simpson went. Do we go up to 49 to the Pittsburgh Steelers? Here's the problem. Steelers so far in the first took Deontay Banks. And then at 32, they took Mozzie Smith. They're taking defense, right? Likelihood that they're going to take a middle linebacker that they need is not all that surprising. I think we might have to try. They do need linebacker. I think I could see Campbell going here. Let's see what 49 to 59 looks like. 49, you're talking 118 points. 59 is 91. So you're talking about 27 points again. We could go ahead and try to we could trade a later round pick and go ahead and get him again, or we can risk it for the biscuit. You guys tell me what you guys want to do. We can try to offer the trade, see what they think. This trade will not be accepted. 42% chance. Yeah, they're going to want some pretty high stuff. The only thing that they're going to want is our second and third, and I'm not willing to trade our third round pick. Just play JSN at middle linebacker. Lions, Steelers, and Bucks are all linebacker. Right. That's the problem we're going to run into right now is there's quite a few guys in here. Quite a few teams. Right. Pitt won't say yes if they need one too. That's the big issue right now. I think, do we go ahead and do we run it or do we try to offer them a trade? They're not going to take the other fifth, unfortunately. So we're kind of at a standstill unless we try to trade them a defensive tackle. Like if we try to trade Ed Oliver with it. If we go ahead, let's try to see if they take Ed Oliver. They would. So if we traded 59 in Ed Oliver, we could get up to 49. I wonder if we could get anything back. We could. Huh. Okay, guys. Let me see what you guys think. And maybe potentially do we at 91 go ahead and get I don't think Keanu Benton will be there, but potentially Ed Oliver's replacement. There's a couple guys in that range. Keandre Coburn that you could look at. There's some options. I mean, again, you're trading a hole. It's up to you guys what you guys want to do. Right now, obviously, for anybody that just jumped in, we traded up from 27 to 23 to get JSN. Now, I know people are saying, why would we do that? Here's the thing, folks. JSN is by far the best wide receiver in this draft. He's a very, very good receiver. If you haven't watched, go ahead, pull some tape on him. He's very talented. He would likely be, because he's exactly the same size as Stephon Diggs, he would be Stephon Diggs' heir apparent. And Stephon Diggs is going to be 30 years old November 14th. You have a guy that you can have in the weeds so that you're not going after Stephon Diggs leaves and having a gaping hole at wide receiver, because I trust that you guys understand this. But if Stephon Diggs was to be gone, this team is going to be in a bit of peril. So having somebody there is, I think, very important. We trade up 4 spots. If he's there at 23, don't be surprised if Brandon Bean does the same. Let's see. I think a wide receiver in the first round. You'd be surprised. I'm not the only cover one guy that wants a wide receiver. I have talked to most of them, whether it's Eric or Greg or Joe DeRosa or the Bills guys. There's a lot of them that like the idea of a wide receiver. That it's just how it falls and what it looks like. And I'm a vessel. I'm a vessel for all of you and your drafting needs, right? And that's the other thing. You have JSN under cost control. And here's the other part about that. Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, two very, very, very good receivers. And I think if Olave had a better quarterback, Garrett Wilson's the same. You're talking about they said JSN is better than both of them. They said he's better than them. So that tells you something. He's very, very talented. That being said, guys, we got to make a decision here. Do we go ahead and trade at Oliver, get 10 million off the books, right? Or, well, we're not going to go ahead and trade for DeAndre Hopkins now. It's getting all crafty in my head. That doesn't make any sense. We're not going to do that. And I'm not going to put that into the airwaves because I don't want you crazies going ahead and trying to coax me into trading for DeAndre Hopkins with a 5th round pick or some nonsense. I do love DeAndre Hopkins, though, and I was 100% on board for that game. But let's not do that. Go ahead. I need to hear what you guys have to say. Yes trade or no trade? The more we get no trades or yes trades, we'll do that. Oh, and my wife found our cat. So there's a thing. My cat has been missing for the last couple hours. But here we are. No trade? No? Okay. Let's go ahead and we're gonna nix that trade. We're gonna resume the draft. Jack, wow, there it is. Literally the Steelers literally took Jack Campbell right there. Exactly as we said. So let's go ahead. Keanu Benton. Man, that's tough. A lot of guys right there that are Steve Avila, Jalen Hyatt, Michael Wilson. Okay. So here we are. Let's take a look. There's some interesting stuff here and some stuff that I think is worthwhile. Sam Laporta, very, very talented tight end from Iowa. A guy, if you haven't watched him, he's a force. He's a lot of fun. Luke Whippler, a guy that is center, but you can move him around. Joe Tippmann, same thing. Matthew Bergeron. Here's the thing about Matthew Bergeron that I like a lot. Aaron Cromer knows a lot about him, has worked him out. He is very talented at Syracuse. We could go ahead and solidify that right side of the line right there. There's Siaki Ika, another very talented defensive lineman. There's a couple options here. Do you guys want to go ahead and solidify that offensive line and take Matthew Bergeron? Looks like Bergeron's the saying. Let's see if there's anybody that is interested in trading down to the Jets. That's to 112. I am not willing to go down that far. So let's go ahead and we are going to draft Matthew Bergeron with the 2nd pick. Okay. And we're going to keep an eye on here, take a look and see what we can come up with, potentially filling in a couple more holes. Now, guys, here's the one thing I want to keep in mind. I want you to remember, and if you didn't have a chance to listen to what Sal Capaccio said earlier when he was on the show, we don't know if Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott truly believe there's a massive hole, because I said that there's a gaping hole in the middle of the defense, or the defense, right, with that middle linebacker position. We don't know if that's in fact the case, and it's entirely possible that maybe Terrell Bernard is the guy that they believe can step in. Because here's the thing, and I like what Nate Geary said. If anybody doesn't know Nate Geary, he's a fantastic content creator as well. Nate said that speed can also be because of processing, right? For anybody who doesn't know what processing it means that when a middle linebacker is seeing what's in front of them, that they're processing the actual play that's going on, what hole they need to hit, whether it's the A gap or the C gap, whether they need to know if it's a run or a pass. There's a lot of things that go on to that processing time, right? He may have been slower because his processing wasn't where Tremaine Edmonds might have been. So it's entirely possible that in this situation that they like Terrell Bernard and that they believe that Terrell Bernard next to Matt Milano can be successful. Yes, he is a little bit smaller. He's 6'1", 224 pounds. But there has been linebackers in the NFL, in the history of the NFL, that have been successful in the history or in the past being smaller. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know if that's in fact the case, and I don't think they'll move Matt Milano into the mic. I don't think he'll be the green dot, but that's just a possibility. Let's see where we're at right now. We're at pick 70. We're going to 71. We got 20 picks before we're back up again. I don't know if we want to trade because we have very few picks, 91, 130, and 205, right? So let's see where we're at. We're getting close, and we're going to make a decision from 91. I think at this point, we just go ahead and ride it out to 91. I think that's the best decision. Okay. Here we are. So we are up at 91. We've got a couple different options. A quarterback, which is not going to happen. We got Anthony Johnson Jr., nice little safety, Chandler Zavala, Jamie Robinson, who's a bit of a popular pick for the Bills. And then if you go down, there's a couple guys down here that I really like. A couple defensive linemen. We got Kobe Turner, a very popular pick, Moro Ajomo. Then we also have Wanya Morris, who is definitely a scheme fit for the Bills. I believe you can push him inside. Another guy that we can look at, Luke Schoonmaker, another offensive piece that we could potentially have, moving into that offense. Jartarvius Martin, really nice corner. There's a bunch of stuff here, a bunch of different options in terms of guys that we can plug and play. You guys tell me what you guys think. I love the option of Moro Ajomo. We can also go Luke Schoonmaker. I think that would be really nice having Schoonmaker, like, Sal Capaccio said, they have been looking for that second tight end. I think that would be a great option for the Bills. But I think a nice defensive tackle like a Moro Ajomo or Kobe Turner would actually be a lot of fun to add into the team. You guys tell me what you guys want to do. I'm going off of you. You guys are the general manager. Tell me what you think. Now, Kobe is a little bit smaller, 6'2 and a quarter, 288 pounds. And Moro Ajomo, he is 6'3", 292. You guys tell me what you're thinking. Defensive tackles that are available. We have, let's see, I'm going to bring them up for you real quick. Kobe Turner, Moro Ajomo, and then you're kind of getting deeper. If we were to wait till 130, we could do Keandre Coburn. I think that might be more. You could try to get Broderick Martin later. I know that's a big popular pick. And then, like I said, you do have some tight ends available. Tucker Kraft, Luke Schoonmaker, Davis Allen, Zach Kuntz, excuse me. Let's see. And then some interior guys, Chandler Zavala, Juice Scruggs, Andrew Voorhees. Andrew Voorhees is an interesting one because he obviously has that ACL injury. I think there's some options, right? Definitely some options. There's Jacqueline Roy. It's a bit early, but that's okay. What do you guys think? We have Luke Schoonmaker or Jacqueline Roy? Or if you guys wanted to, we can wait till 130 and potentially take Keandre Coburn, who is one of my personal favorites. whatever you guys want to do, I'm down with. And like I said, next week we have a lot of fun coming up. We have Bruce Nolan and we have Z-Bot. By the way, for anybody who's not familiar, Keandre Coburn, 6'2", 344. You want a fatty in the middle, that's your boy. He is a big boy. We brought Roy in for a visit. We did bring in Jacqueline Roy. You guys tell me, Schoonmaker? We got a lot of Schoonmaker right here. Do we go Schoonmaker and then follow it up later with Keandre Coburn? I think that's the move. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and take Luke Schoonmaker here. I think that's a great move. And then let's go ahead and I'm going to pause this real quick. We're going to keep tabs on this because I want to see where Keandre Coburn, we don't want to fall without potentially getting an impact player on the defensive line, right? I definitely think it's important to make sure that we're getting somebody to fill in that middle. Let's see where we're at right now. We had Tyler Steen, Wanya Morris, Tucker Kraft, Tanner McKee, Darius Rush, Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed's a very popular pick. A lot of people love him. I know he's Bruce Nolan guy. Jacqueline Roy just went right there. Keyshawn Boot. Let's see. Let's keep going. Sean Tucker, Moro Ajomo, Zach Pickens, Byron Young, Chandler Zavala, Riley Moss, Kai Blue Kelly, Zach Harrison. Let's keep going. We are about 15 picks out from being on the clock again. It's getting interesting. There's a couple guys that are of interest to us. We're 5 out. There it is. Keandre Coburn actually went just a few picks before us. Unfortunately. Schoonmaker? Now we know. Okay. So we are back up again, folks. Let's take a look at what we got available on the defensive line. We have Kobe Turner. We have Broderick Martin, man. I'll be honest with you. I think Broderick Martin is actually a really nice pick. I think that's a guy that I know for a fact. I don't know if Eric's watching, but Eric loves and Greg Thompson loves them some Broderick Martin. 6'5", 320 pounds. That's a man mover right there. You want a big boy in the middle. That's who you want. That's an option right there. We can take a look. Trade the pick for Derrick Henry. Chris, I love you. Be quiet. I say that with affection. There's some corners that are nice here. Let's take a look what we got. Interior offensive line is potentially a good option. Juice Scruggs. Olusegun Oluwatimi. I'm going to butcher that guy's name. That's another guy that's been incredibly tied to the Bills. You guys tell me. We got quite a few options. Vilami Fahoko was just on a visit with the Bills. That's a guy, I believe. Let me take a look real quick. I believe he was just on a top 30. They were on a visit. He had on a visit. Might be wrong in that regard. I remember I read something in regards to the Bills and take Martin. You guys want to take the fatty? Okay. So that's the nice thing about late night is we can do whatever we want. Man, we're going late. An hour and a half already with you guys. Man, I love you. I love you. Let's see. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and take Broderick Martin. I think that's a great pick right there. And the nice thing is, I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you guys know this, after this year, and I'm sure they're going to do something with Daquan Jones. We don't have anybody under contract. So it is imperative that we get somebody. So let's go ahead and take Broderick Martin. And then we have one last pick at 205. Guys, I love what you guys are doing here. I think this draft has been very nice so far, filling some impactful positions. Guys, go ahead for me real quick. If you would, go ahead and hit that like button. All you guys got to do is just click the like underneath the video, see the thumbs up. I really do appreciate that. Click that like. And the other thing is, If you're not already, go on Twitter at the Thomas DeLoss, just like where you see underneath my name. Go ahead and hit me with a follow on Twitter. I'd love to have some conversations with a lot of you guys. You'll see me sometimes, not sometimes, a lot more than sometimes on Twitter Spaces. I am interacting on there quite a bit, talking all things from Sabres, which while we're doing this and we're waiting for the Bills pick to come around, I do want to say something real quick. Guys, I think we're in an incredible place right now for Buffalo sports. The Bills are obviously where they're at. Josh Allen is a superstar amongst superstars. But the Sabres right now, man, I think they're on the precipice of becoming a powerhouse team in the NHL. Really enjoy this moment because it's been a long time since two Buffalo sports teams have been good at the same time. It's unbelievable, truly. There's a lot going on in Buffalo, and I think it's a great time to be a sports fan, great time to be a Bills fan, and it's exciting. I'm excited to see where things go and see where we're at. Look at running backs at 205. Muhammad Ibrahim, that's a nice option. Evan Hull. There's a couple good guys here. Though I think, to be honest with you, some of these you could probably get as UDFAs. Let's take a look at Edge, MJ Anderson, Darrell and Chime, Isaiah Land, Brenton Cox. Let's see what else we got on the interior offensive line. It's a couple options. Let's see what we get on offensive tackle. So this is where you're really digging, right? Digging deep with these last round picks. Who do you guys, what position group are we looking at? You guys tell me. I'm down to take whatever position. We got corner. Let's take a look at what the overall ranking is right now, where we're at. Jonah Tavai, Jason Taylor, Quindell Johnson, Troy Brown, Chamari Connor. There's quite a few options. Ronnie Bell, a wide receiver out of Michigan. There are some options at wide receiver. Let's go ahead and bring that up too. Some interesting options here for wide receiver. Another name, Andre Isavas, guy that's been talked about. Middle linebacker. You guys want to look at a linebacker? Let's take a look. Let's see what's available here. Troy Brown, Michael Jones, Charlie Thomas, Mohamed Diabate, D. Winters. D. Winters, I believe. I think the Bills met with D. Winters, actually. Let me see real quick. Actually, pretty confident. Yep. That's actually not a bad one right there. The Bills did meet with D. Winters. Let's take a look. D. Winters is he's a converted safety linebacker. He's a small guy, 6'1", 192. He's more of a tweener. Isavas. Yep, Isavas did fall. He is available right now. Right here. Yep. He is still available. Trey Tucker is available. There's a lot of guys, a lot of big names available. We could go ahead and take a wide receiver. Let's go ahead and I'm going to pull up real quick Bill's top 30 visits so far. Let's see if we can get an updated tracker and see where we're at for the Bills. So the Bills and who they've met with so far, and now mind you, this is just visits. It's not top 30. There's quite a few names on here. I'm trying to see if there's anybody late round that's of interest. Huh. Now, I just don't know if they would take two wide receivers. That's the only thing that I think is of question. I don't know if they would be willing to take two wide receivers at that late of a spot. You guys tell me what you guys want to do. I would like another wide receiver. You're drafting a practice squad receiver. Right. Any receiver is not going to make the team. That's the big problem right there is if you're taking somebody like that, likelihood they're not going to make it. A safety might not be a bad option. I think there's, potential there for backup. But then again, you also have to look. Taylor Rapp is probably a guy. Somebody mentioned Brandon Hill. Brandon Hill or Antonio Maffi. It's not a bad pick. You guys tell me. Brandon Hill, tap into the pit again. Okay. How does that sound? Everybody good with that? A nice safety out of pit. We're kind of all over the place here. Go for Hill. I think we're kind of in a good spot right here. Let's go ahead and take Brandon Hill. I think we're in a good spot. Run to the hill. Run to the hill, Batman. Guys, as we're finishing this up, and I will post this on Twitter, Cover One will retweet as well. I'll tell you, I really do genuinely appreciate you guys being here tonight for the debut of Buffalo Late Night. What I've gone through in January was difficult. What I will tell you is this. I don't know how old you guys are. I don't know what you guys are going through, but take every moment and appreciate it. Appreciate what's going on around you. Appreciate the relationships and the people that you have in your life. I spent a lot of time. I lived with my grandparents for a while, and I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, specifically my grandfather. He was my best friend, a guy that mattered a lot to me. And I thought I had a lot of time. I thought I had more time, and that time was ended very quickly. It was abrupt, and unfortunately, that's how life can be, right? Very much take what's in front of you and enjoy the time you have. Enjoy the people that are in your life. Tell the people that you have in your life that you love them, that that they matter to you. If you haven't called somebody, call them. Don't hold on to grudges. It's not important. Life is far too short, and people are far too important to let relationships dwindle or go to the wayside. Tell people you love them. Spend time with them. Wrap your arms around them. You know, I don't know if you guys know Tim the Tap Man. He always says, tell somebody you love them. Do it. It can make somebody stay. As a mailman by trade, and that's what I do for a day-to-day basis, my mantra is be nice to everybody because you don't know what people are going through. Just as people didn't know what I was going through in January with everything and all the stress that I was under from everything I was going through. Keep that in mind. Be nice. Be happy. Smile. Be friendly. Tell somebody you love them, and continue being impactful in other people's lives. Here is the final result of this draft right here. I like it. I like it a lot. I don't care for the grades on the side because I don't really care what they have to say. Jackson Smith and Jigma, obviously, you saw that trade. Matthew Bergeron, Luke. Oh gosh, what was it? I'm gonna kill. I've already forgot it. Oh boy, I gotta go back. Hold on, I gotta find this. We need to know how to say his name. Schoonmaker. Okay, I'm gonna put that into my lexicon. Schoonmaker. Okay, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Matthew Bergeron, Luke Schoonmaker, Broderick Martin, Brandon Hill. I think we're in a great spot right here, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, I truly do appreciate you coming tonight and spending some time with me on Buffalo Late Night. I will make sure to post that so you guys can see it. Like I said, next week we will have Bruce Nolan, everybody's favorite weatherman, and Z-Bot from Buffalo Fanatics. It's going to be a blast. Should be a hell of a night. I hope you guys truly enjoyed tonight's show. I am honestly very honored that you guys spent the time with me tonight. I'm excited to see how this thing goes going forward, and I hope you guys come back and spend some more time. I'm Thomas DeLoss. I am the host of Buffalo Late Night. You can find me on Twitter at the Thomas DeLoss. Make sure you're going ahead and subscribing to our YouTube channel at Cover One. Make sure you're subscribing to Cover One on Twitter, and all the guys at Cover One. Fantastic content. Go ahead and hit that like button. Make sure that you go ahead and sign up for One Pass. I'm going through everything as fast as I can. But as I said, make sure you hug somebody. Tell somebody you love them. Tell them you care and you want to spend days enjoying time with other people. Enjoy the weather. It's going to be beautiful tomorrow. Everything will be up on Spotify so you can listen back if you haven't listened. Guys, again, thank you very much. I truly, truly appreciate it. And we will see you next Thursday. Go Bills.
Make me wanna